Every day, you're given a gift that most people never fully appreciate: 86,400 seconds. You don't see them, you don't hear them, but they shape your life more than almost anything else. They arrive quietly each morning and disappear just as silently each night. And what you choose to do with them determines not only who you are, but who you become. The problem is, many of us are sleepwalking through time, not because we're lazy, not because we don't care, but because we've never truly paused to understand how much of our life is being drained by things that seem harmless, invisible, even normal. Think about it. How much of your day is actually lived with intention? How many hours are spent chasing someone else's idea of success, reacting to constant noise, mindlessly scrolling, overthinking, procrastinating, all while your most important dreams sit on hold, waiting for the right moment? But what if that moment never comes? What if the greatest tragedy isn't failing, but never truly starting, never fully showing up for your own life? Time is not just a resource, it's the foundation of your future, and unlike money, once it's gone, it never comes back. Yet we keep trading it for things that offer us nothing in return. We postpone decisions, we chase distractions, we believe we have more time, always more time, until we don't. And somewhere along the way, we forget the urgency of now. We forget that the clock is always ticking, not to pressure us, but to remind us that this life is finite and therefore deeply valuable. But here's the truth. It's not too late. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need ideal conditions. What you need is clarity, courage, and a willingness to begin right where you are with what you have. Because success doesn't start when the world gives you permission. It starts the moment you decide to stop wasting time and reclaim your power. In this episode, we're going to walk together through the invisible patterns, distractions, and habits that quietly steal your potential. We'll explore how to break free from mental traps, align your actions with purpose, and create a system that turns your time into progress. Drawing from philosophy, psychology, and lived experience, this is more than advice. It's a call to wake up, to act, and to take full responsibility for the life you're building. So as we begin, ask yourself with full honesty, if you truly valued your time like your life depended on it, what would you start doing differently today? The time wasters you don't even realize are holding you back. You might think you're busy. You might look at your calendar and see a packed schedule, back-to-back commitments, endless to-do lists, and think, I don't have time to waste. But what if the real danger isn't in the time you knowingly spend, but in the time that quietly slips through your fingers without you even noticing? The truth is, the most dangerous time wasters aren't obvious. They don't announce themselves. They don't feel like wasted time in the moment. They show up disguised as productivity, as rest, as research, as preparation, even as just a few minutes. But added up, they rob you of days, months, even years. Let's start with one of the biggest culprits: passive consumption. Scrolling through your phone, bouncing from app to app, letting hours dissolve into short videos, endless headlines, or content loops that lead nowhere. It doesn't feel destructive. It feels like checking in, catching up, just relaxing. But behind that screen, an algorithm is working overtime, not just to entertain you, but to capture your attention, to extend your time spent, and to disrupt your flow. 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. Multiply that by every day this year, and ask yourself honestly, what could you have built with that time? Then there's overthinking, a quieter thief, but just as deadly. It disguises itself as careful planning, responsible caution, or intellectual reflection. But in truth, it's often fear wearing a clever mask. How many times have you sat on a good idea, talked yourself out of taking the next step, waited for more information, more certainty, more validation? You weren't doing nothing, you were stuck in motionless thought. And while your mind was spinning in loops, time was moving forward, opportunity was walking by, and you were missing the chance to engage with the world through action. We also lose time to emotional reactivity, carrying arguments in our heads long after they ended, replaying perceived slights, nursing resentment, or getting pulled into other people's chaos. These mental loops burn energy and attention, pulling you away from the work that actually matters. You think you're being thoughtful or standing your ground, but you're actually stuck in a feedback loop of distraction, mentally living in moments that are no longer happening, giving away your present to things that don't deserve it, even things that appear responsible, like saying yes to everything, attending every meeting, responding instantly to every message, can quietly drain your time. When you live in a constant state of reaction, you forfeit your ability to create. You become a manager of tasks, not a builder of dreams. The time you spend reacting to others' priorities often comes at the expense of your own. And without realizing it, your days become filled with movement, but devoid of progress. What makes these time wasters so dangerous is precisely that they don't feel dramatic. They're not catastrophic failures or major breakdowns. They're small, quiet, normal, and that's why they slip under the radar. But they add up, and over time, they shape your reality. So how do you break free? The first step is honest awareness. You can't change what you won't name. Start by tracking your time, not just where it goes, but how it feels. Which hours leave you feeling empty, scattered, or depleted? Which activities feel productive, but actually leave you stagnant? Pay attention not just to how you spend your time, but to how that time shapes your energy, your focus, and your momentum. The most successful people in the world aren't perfect time managers. They're ruthless time protectors. They know where their hours go. They make decisions based on what matters. And perhaps most importantly, they've learned to say no, not just to distractions, but to anything that doesn't align with their mission. Reflect deeply today. Where is your time going? What patterns, habits, or behaviors have quietly become your normal, but are stealing your future? You don't need more hours in the day. You need to reclaim the ones you already have. Break free from mental loops and reclaim your time. There's a kind of time loss that's harder to see because it doesn't show up in your calendar and no one else can measure it but you. It happens in your mind in the form of repetitive thoughts, unfinished internal conversations, imaginary arguments, and what-if scenarios that play on a loop. These mental loops are deceptive. They make you feel busy. They mimic analysis, reflection, and even responsibility. But what they often generate is noise, constant, subtle noise that eats away at your clarity, your energy, and most importantly, your time. You've probably experienced it. You sit down to work on something important, something meaningful. But before you can even begin, your brain replays a past mistake, revisits a recent conflict, or spirals into an uncertain future. You're not acting. You're not solving. You're spinning. These loops disguise themselves as thinking, but what they really are is delay. Delay wrapped in emotion. Delay wrapped in fear. And while your mind circles the same thoughts again and again, the present moment quietly slips away. Mental loops aren't always about big traumas or dramatic moments. Sometimes they're triggered by the smallest things: a look someone gave you, a vague email, an awkward silence in a conversation. Your brain, trying to make sense of the discomfort, replays the moment over and over, trying to decode it. But instead of gaining clarity, you get stuck. Your emotional and mental bandwidth is drained by questions with no real answers, by problems that aren't being solved, just relived. Neuroscience tells us that the brain is drawn to unresolved patterns. It seeks closure. When something feels unfinished, whether it's a decision you haven't made, a conversation you're avoiding, or a goal you keep postponing, your brain flags it as incomplete. And unless you take deliberate action to bring closure or clarity, that thought keeps resurfacing, stealing focus and scattering attention. This is known as the Zeigarnik effect, and it explains why unclosed mental loops linger far longer than they should. But here's the deeper cost. While your mind is caught in these loops, you're not present, you're not creating, you're not progressing, you're living inside your head, not in your life. And when enough of your days are consumed by thinking instead of doing, your goals remain untouched. Your potential stays dormant. You start mistaking mental exhaustion for hard work and busyness for progress. Breaking free starts with awareness and interruption. The moment you catch yourself spinning in a familiar thought, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this thought leading me to a decision, or is it just looping for comfort or control? Am I thinking to solve or thinking to delay? Interrupting the loop breaks the trance. It gives you the space to step out of the thought and choose a different direction. Then redirect your energy toward action. Often the quickest way to end a mental loop is to do the thing you're avoiding. Make the call. Write the message. Take the first step toward the goal. Or if action isn't possible yet, write the thought down. Externalize it. Give it form so it doesn't keep living rent-free in your head. Even small actions can close big loops. You'll also need to simplify your inner world. That means letting go of the need to control every outcome, resolve every conflict, or predict every scenario. Mental loops often stem from the illusion that if you just think a little longer, you'll gain perfect clarity or control. But clarity often comes not from thinking more, but from moving forward, learning as you go, and making peace with the fact that some questions won't have perfect answers. Reflect honestly today. What thoughts are stealing your time without giving anything back? What loops are you caught in that feel productive but are actually paralyzing? And most importantly, what could you reclaim creatively, emotionally, spiritually, if you finally broke free? You don't need to figure it all out right now. You just need to start choosing presence over overthinking, movement over mental paralysis, life outside your head instead of getting lost inside it. That's where your time begins to return to you, not in big dramatic moments, but in the quiet decision to let go of the loop and take one small, decisive step forward. Live on purpose. Align your actions with your vision. There's a subtle kind of exhaustion that comes not from working hard, but from working without direction. You can spend hours being productive, ticking boxes, responding to messages, showing up on time, and still go to bed feeling hollow, like your effort is feeding someone else's machine, not your own. That's the weight of misalignment. That's what it feels like when your actions don't match your purpose. You're moving, yes, but you're not moving toward anything that truly matters to you. Living on purpose doesn't mean every second of your day is filled with some grand, noble cause. It doesn't require you to have all the answers or a perfectly mapped-out life plan. What it does require is clarity. Clarity about what matters most. Clarity about what you're building, why you're building it, and what kind of person you want to become in the process. Without that, you drift. You say yes to things that dilute your energy. You chase goals that aren't yours. You burn time on tasks that move you further from, not closer to, the life you actually want. Philosophers have spoken about this for centuries. Seneca warned that, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." You could have all the time, energy, and resources in the world, but if you're not steering your life in alignment with your vision, you're just being blown around by circumstances, pulled by trends, reacting instead of choosing. The science backs this up too. Psychological studies show that people who live with a clear sense of purpose are more motivated, more resilient under stress, and more consistent in their actions. Purpose isn't just motivational, it's directional. It filters your decisions. It helps you know what to say no to. It strengthens your ability to stay focused when life gets loud. And perhaps most importantly, it makes even difficult days feel meaningful, because you know what they're building toward. But here's the trap. Most people confuse goals with purpose. Goals are outcomes. They change. You hit one, you set another. But purpose is deeper. It's the why behind the what. It's the thread that connects all the little things you do, the emails you write, the workouts you show up for, the books you read, the habits you build. Purpose gives those actions weight. It turns routine into intention. It transforms effort into direction. To live on purpose, start by reconnecting with your inner compass. Ask yourself, what do I value most deeply? What kind of impact do I want to have? What would I still care about, even if no one noticed or applauded? These questions aren't about performance, they're about alignment. When you begin to live from those answers, your time stops scattering in 100 directions. It starts consolidating, focusing, sharpening. You begin to move with intention, not faster, but deeper. Living on purpose also means making peace with the discomfort that comes from walking your own path. Because when you stop living by default, people will notice. Some will question your choices, some will misunderstand. And that's okay. Your vision isn't for everyone, it's for you. And your task is not to please the crowd, but to honor the truth that lives in you. So today, reflect honestly. Are your actions aligned with your deepest vision, or are they simply habits born from convenience and routine? Are you spending your time building something that matters to you, or are you climbing a ladder that leads to someone else's dream? You don't need to have every step figured out. You just need to start choosing with more intention, saying yes to what aligns, saying no to what distracts, and remembering always that success isn't just about results. It's about living each day in a way that reflects the life you actually want to build. That's what it means to live on purpose, and that's where real momentum begins. Master the clock. Prioritize what truly matters. Time doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't slow down when you're overwhelmed, and it doesn't wait while you figure things out. It moves, quietly, relentlessly, and whether you're ready or not, it keeps going. But here's the truth that most people avoid. While you can't control time itself, you can control how you use it. The secret isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. Mastering the clock isn't about squeezing every second with frantic energy. It's about being ruthless with your priorities and intentional with your focus. Many people mistake busyness for effectiveness. They fill their days with motion, endless tasks, messages, errands, believing that movement equals progress. But being busy isn't the same as being productive. In fact, it's often the opposite. You can run all day and still end up exactly where you started, simply because you were focused on the wrong things. Real productivity doesn't come from doing more, it comes from choosing better. Psychologists refer to this as the priority paradox. The more we have on our plates, the more likely we are to default to easy tasks, the quick wins that feel productive but don't move the needle. We procrastinate on the meaningful work, the work that matters, because it feels heavier, riskier, more demanding, and so we convince ourselves that clearing our inbox or organizing our files is somehow urgent, while the real priorities wait quietly in the background. The solution is brutal clarity. It's asking hard questions like, what are the top 3 things that will actually move me closer to my vision? What's draining my time that doesn't deserve it? What am I avoiding that I know I need to face? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're necessary if you want to stop being a prisoner of your schedule and start becoming the architect of your day. One of the most powerful tools for mastering the clock is the practice of time blocking, designating specific chunks of your day for your highest priorities and defending that time like your future depends on it. Because it does. When you begin to treat your most important work with the same urgency and protection as a critical appointment or meeting, everything starts to shift. You begin to live proactively instead of reactively. You stop letting your day happen to you and start designing it with purpose. There's also power in saying no, not just to distractions, but to good things that aren't the right things. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. If you don't choose intentionally, life will choose for you. Other people's priorities will fill your time. Notifications, obligations, social pressures. They'll all compete for your attention. And if you're not clear on what truly matters, you'll find yourself busy, but empty. Consider someone like Warren Buffett, who once said, "The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything." Buffett understands deeply that success isn't built on doing more, it's built on doing less, better, on narrowing your focus so tightly that your energy is no longer scattered, but concentrated, deliberate, and unstoppable. Reflect on your own life right now. Are you prioritizing what matters most, or just reacting to what feels urgent? Are your days being shaped by your vision, or are they being hijacked by noise and habit? Are you clear on your deepest priorities, or are you letting your energy be drained by things that don't move you forward? You don't need more hours. You need sharper focus. You need the courage to say no. You need the discipline to protect what matters. Because the truth is, the clock doesn't care how you spend your time, but your future will. And if you want that future to reflect your values, your goals, and your deepest potential, you must take full responsibility for the minutes that shape it. Master the clock, and you take back your power, not just over your schedule, but over your entire life. Transform your habits, transform your life. Every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming, not once, not in grand moments of transformation, but daily, in quiet routines, unconscious behaviors, and small decisions that seem insignificant at the time. Habits are the architecture of your life. They build your identity, define your rhythm, and silently dictate where your time, energy, and potential are going. If you feel stuck, scattered, or off track, chances are it's not because of a lack of ambition, it's because your habits are out of sync with your vision. We often wait for motivation to strike before we act. But habit science tells a different story. Motivation is inconsistent. Habits are reliable. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, emphasizes that real change doesn't come from setting massive goals. It comes from refining the systems that shape your behavior. Because in the end, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems, and those systems live in your habits. But here's the part most people miss. Bad habits aren't always loud or dramatic. They're subtle. Checking your phone first thing in the morning, skipping your morning routine just this once, choosing comfort over progress at the end of a long day. Each of these decisions feels small, but over time they hardwire your brain for distraction, hesitation, and inertia. Neuroscience shows that every repeated behavior strengthens specific neural pathways. What you practice, you become. The brain doesn't care if the habit serves you or not. It simply rewards what you repeat. Transforming your habits starts with self-awareness. Not judgment, awareness. Begin by identifying the small patterns that quietly undermine your progress. Where are you leaking time? What behaviors feel harmless but slowly disconnect you from your purpose? Be honest, but gentle. Change doesn't come from shame. It comes from clarity and commitment. Then start small. One habit, one shift. Anchor it to something you already do. Make it so easy that it feels almost too small to matter. Why? Because consistency is more powerful than intensity. A 5-minute journaling habit, done daily, will reshape your mindset more than a once-a-month deep reflection. 10 push-ups a day won't change your body overnight, but it will change your identity because you start seeing yourself as someone who shows up. And that shift is everything. Stack your habits. Make good behaviors easier by attaching them to existing routines. If you already make coffee every morning, use that time to review your priorities for the day. If you drive to work, turn off distractions and use the ride to listen to something that fuels your mind. Habit formation isn't just about discipline, it's about design. Design your environment so it supports who you want to become. Lay your clothes out the night before. Keep your phone out of the bedroom. Remove friction between you and your higher self. And, most importantly, link your habits to your identity, not just your outcomes. Don't just say, "I want to write a book." Say, "I'm a writer and writers write." Don't just say, "I want to get fit." Say, "I'm the kind of person who takes care of their body." When you shift your habits to reflect your identity, every action becomes part of a deeper narrative. You're not just checking a box, you're becoming someone. Reflect honestly today. What habits are shaping your life right now? Are they aligned with who you want to be, or are they quietly keeping you stuck? What's one small shift you could make, starting today, that would serve as a vote for your future self? Because in the end, your life isn't built by what you intend to do. It's built by what you consistently do. Transform your habits, and everything else will follow. Your time portfolio. Make every hour count. If you treated your time like money, if every hour were $1 and every day a bank account, how would you spend it differently? Would you still hand it over so easily to distractions, interruptions, or tasks that drain your energy? Or would you become more intentional, more protective, more strategic about where each moment goes? The truth is, your time is your most valuable asset. Unlike money, you can't earn more of it. You can't borrow it. You can't recover what's already gone. That makes it infinitely more precious. And yet, we rarely treat it that way. Imagine if you tracked your hours the way an investor tracks their finances. Not with obsession, but with clarity. You'd know where your time is going, what's giving you the best return, and what's quietly depleting your energy and progress. This mindset of managing your time like a portfolio completely shifts how you approach your day. It forces you to ask, is this hour a cost or an investment? Is this task building something meaningful or just filling space? In the world of finance, good investors diversify intelligently, avoid emotional decisions, and focus on long-term growth. The same principles apply to time. If your whole day is spent on reactive tasks, answering emails, handling interruptions, doing shallow work, you're essentially putting all your time into low-return assets. You're busy, yes, but you're not building. High-return time, by contrast, is invested in activities that align with your deepest goals: learning, creating, strategizing, exercising, connecting, reflecting. These are the hours that multiply over time, not because they're urgent, but because they're foundational. Most people don't lose their time in massive chunks. They lose it slowly, subtly, in 5-minute scrolls, in repeated distractions, in tasks that feel productive but have no real direction. These are time debts, hours spent with no return, draining your future for the illusion of short-term relief. But the good news is, once you see this clearly, you can start investing your time more powerfully. Start with a time audit, just for a few days. Track how you spend each hour, and then categorize it. Was this high-return time, low-return time, or wasted time? Was this an investment in your health, your growth, your relationships, your purpose? Or was it reactive, mindless, or misaligned with what you truly value? You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be honest, because clarity precedes change. Then begin to rebalance your portfolio. Start protecting time blocks for your highest return activities before the day fills up. Make space for deep work, not just urgent tasks. Schedule time to reflect. Create without an immediate outcome. Learn something new. Strengthen a meaningful connection. These are the hours that build the life you actually want, not the life that simply looks busy from the outside. You'll also need to prune. Cut out the things that waste your time or dilute your focus. That might mean saying no to obligations that no longer serve you. It might mean limiting how often you check messages or letting go of habits that bring comfort but no value. Just like a smart investor sells off poor-performing assets, you must let go of the patterns that aren't helping you grow. And perhaps most importantly, don't forget to rest with intention. Rest isn't wasted time when it's deliberate. In fact, recovery is one of the most powerful time investments you can make. But passive, distracted rest, numbing yourself with noise, won't recharge you. It will only leave you drained and behind. Real rest restores energy, renews clarity, and prepares you to invest even better tomorrow. So ask yourself today, where is my time going? Am I spending it like someone building something meaningful, or like someone waiting for life to happen? What would change if I treated every hour as if it mattered? Because it does. Your time is your greatest currency. And when you start investing it with clarity, discipline, and purpose, the compound returns will show. Not just in your productivity, but in your health, your confidence, your relationships, and the legacy you're building every single day. Start now. Build momentum through small wins. There's a powerful illusion that keeps people stuck, one that feels logical on the surface, but is quietly corrosive underneath. I'll start when I'm ready. We wait for clarity, for motivation, for the right mood, the perfect timing, or some external signal that tells us, now is the moment. But here's the hard truth. That moment almost never arrives. Life doesn't pause to give you clean openings. It rarely feels perfect. And if you keep waiting to feel ready, you'll still be waiting a year from now. The way out of this trap isn't a huge leap. It's a single step, small, manageable, imperfect. Because momentum doesn't come from thinking, planning, or wishing. It comes from doing. It comes from action, and specifically from small wins. Wins that are so simple they might look insignificant to others, but they shift something inside you. They change your posture, your energy, your identity. You go from someone who's thinking about it to someone who's doing it. James Clear explains this beautifully in his habit research. If you want to make meaningful change, don't aim for radical overnight transformation. Aim to become the type of person who shows up. And the easiest way to do that is to shrink the starting line. Make it so small that your brain can't talk you out of it. Want to build a writing habit? Start with 5 minutes a day. Want to get in shape? Do 5 push-ups. Want to meditate? Try 60 seconds of stillness. It's not about how much you do. It's about proving to yourself that you're capable of doing something. There's also a neurological reason this works. Every time you complete a task, no matter how small, your brain releases a little burst of dopamine. This doesn't just make you feel good, it creates a loop. Action leads to reward, which fuels more action. This is how momentum is born. Not from grand gestures, but from tiny, consistent progress. From showing up again and again until the behavior becomes part of who you are. Small wins also reduce fear. Often we delay because the goal feels too big, too far away, too overwhelming. But when you start small, you bypass the threat response in your brain. You make the task feel doable. You trick your mind into saying, "This isn't so bad." And once you're in motion, everything changes. That 1 page turns into 3. That 5-minute workout turns into 20. That small act of courage turns into a breakthrough. Progress creates confidence, and confidence feeds more progress. But to build this momentum, you have to let go of perfection. Stop waiting for the ideal version of your effort. You don't need the perfect morning routine, the flawless strategy, or the full plan. You need movement. You need evidence that you're becoming someone who acts, especially when it's inconvenient, uncertain, or messy, because that's the moment when identity starts to shift. Not when it's easy, but when it's real. Look around your life right now. What have you been putting off? Not because it's impossible, but because you've convinced yourself the conditions aren't perfect. What goal keeps living in your head, waiting for the version of you that has it all together? What would happen if, instead of waiting, you just started? Pick something small, something you can do today, before this day ends. Make it so simple that it feels almost too easy. And then do it. Don't overthink. Don't analyze. Just act. Because the truth is, starting small is the most powerful form of rebellion against stagnation. It's how you stop drifting and start building. It's how you reclaim control, not by force, but by motion. So let this be the moment you stop waiting for life to give you permission. You are the permission. The door isn't locked. The path isn't hidden. All that's missing is your first step. And once you take it, even if it's tiny, you've done something most people never do. You've turned intention into movement. That's how you begin. That's how you change. That's how momentum is built, not in theory, but in action. Embrace change and adapt to thrive. Change doesn't ask for your approval. It happens with or without it. Life moves forward whether you're ready or not. Circumstances evolve, seasons shift, people grow apart, industries transformation. And still, many of us resist. Not because we don't want to grow, but because we've built comfort around the familiar, even when that familiarity no longer serves us. But here's the truth. Growth and comfort rarely exist in the same space. If you want to thrive, not just survive, you have to stop fighting change and start working with it. Adaptability isn't a passive trait, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be strengthened, refined, and mastered through practice. In a world that's always shifting, technologically, socially, emotionally, the people who thrive aren't necessarily the smartest, the fastest, or the strongest. They're the ones who adapt, the ones who know how to let go of what no longer fits and embrace what's unfamiliar with curiosity instead of fear. Philosophers like Heraclitus spoke of this centuries ago. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. The idea is simple but profound. Everything changes, and the sooner you accept this truth, not just intellectually but emotionally, the more power you regain over your future. Resistance to change is a form of emotional rigidity. It keeps you stuck in outdated narratives, clinging to past versions of yourself, or waiting for things to return to the way they were. But growth requires fluidity. It requires a willingness to evolve, not once, but constantly. Neuroscience supports this with the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to new experiences. When you choose to learn, adapt, or shift your behavior, you're not just making better decisions, you're literally reshaping your brain. This means your identity isn't fixed. Your habits, your beliefs, your skills, they're all moldable, but only if you're willing to challenge the patterns you've outgrown. So, what keeps us resisting change? Often, it's fear of the unknown. We overestimate the risks of moving forward and underestimate the risks of staying the same. We romanticize what was because it's familiar, forgetting that many of our old routines, relationships, or mindsets were quietly limiting us. The truth is, comfort zones rarely expand on their own. They shrink, and the longer you stay inside them, the harder it becomes to move beyond them. But when you choose to embrace change, even before you're ready, you take back control. You stop waiting to be acted upon and start becoming someone who responds. That doesn't mean you need to change everything overnight. Adaptability isn't about chaos. It's about intelligent response. It's the quiet courage to say, this isn't working anymore, and that's okay. I'm allowed to shift. I'm allowed to evolve. Practically, this starts with asking better questions when change shows up in your life. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this here to teach me? What am I being invited to release? What am I being challenged to grow into? Adaptability doesn't mean you have to enjoy every disruption. It just means you don't let it paralyze you. You face it with openness, with presence, and with the mindset that even if you don't know the outcome yet, you trust your ability to adjust. You also need to build flexibility into your routines, your mindset, your identity. Hold your plans loosely. Be willing to pivot. Let go of the need to always have certainty before you act. Because most of the breakthroughs in life don't come from sticking rigidly to a plan. They come from responding wisely when the plan falls apart. So reflect right now. Where in your life are you resisting change? What habits, expectations, or beliefs are you clinging to? Not because they serve you, but because they feel safe. And what would happen if, instead of resisting the next wave of change, you leaned into it? Not with fear, but with faith in your ability to grow. Because that's the truth. Adaptability isn't weakness, it's strength in motion. It's the quiet, steady confidence that no matter what life throws at you, you won't break. You'll bend, you'll evolve, you'll find a way. Not because the path is clear, but because you are willing to move forward even when it isn't. That's how you thrive. That's how you rise. Persistence over perfection. Keep going, no matter what. We're taught to admire perfection, to aim for flawless results, ideal timing, perfect conditions. But perfection is a mirage, always just out of reach, always asking for one more tweak, one more delay, one more excuse to hold back. The truth is, the people who reach their goals, build great things, and live meaningful lives are not the ones who waited until everything was perfect. They're the ones who kept going when it wasn't, when it was messy, when they felt unsure, when they failed and tried again anyway. Persistence is the quiet force behind every story of success. It doesn't get celebrated like talent or genius. It rarely looks impressive in the moment, but it's what separates the people who dream from the people who build. Because if you only take action when conditions are ideal, you'll rarely move at all. Life is unpredictable, goals are messy, and real progress almost never looks clean from the inside. It's full of setbacks, missteps, doubts, and uncomfortable learning curves. But if you keep showing up, especially when it's hard, something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust yourself. We often confuse persistence with grinding endlessly without rest. But real persistence isn't about exhausting yourself. It's about refusing to stop when things get uncomfortable. It's about taking the next small step, even when the last one didn't go as planned. It's about understanding that momentum matters more than flawless execution. Because movement, even imperfect movement, creates clarity, builds confidence, and keeps you in the game. Psychologically, perfectionism is often rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. It convinces you that if you can just get everything right, you'll finally feel safe. But safety doesn't come from perfection. It comes from resilience, from knowing you can fall and get back up, from proving to yourself over and over that you don't need to have all the answers to keep moving forward. One of the most powerful things you can do is give yourself permission to do it badly, to try, to stumble, to learn, and to keep going. Because the person who is willing to be imperfect is always the one who improves. They get feedback, they gather experience, they stay in motion while others are stuck waiting for the perfect plan. History is full of people who succeeded not because they were flawless, but because they were relentless. Thomas Edison famously failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked about those failures, he replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not romantic. That's not glamorous. That's just showing up again and again, fueled not by certainty, but by commitment. So what does this mean for you right now? It means stop waiting for the perfect moment. It means stop editing your dream before it's even real. It means your next step doesn't have to be your best one. It just has to be your next one, and then the next, and then the next. Reflect honestly today. What have you been putting off in the name of perfection? What project, conversation, or goal are you delaying? Not because you're not ready, but because you're afraid of doing it imperfectly. What would shift in your life if you chose persistence over perfection, progress over paralysis? The path to success, fulfillment, growth. It's not paved with perfect choices. It's built by those who keep walking even when the road gets rough. So take the next step. Let it be messy. Let it be awkward. Just don't stop. Because perfection might never arrive, but progress is always one decision away. Consistency compounds, the secret to long-term growth. If there's one force more powerful than talent, more reliable than motivation, and more transformative than bursts of inspiration, it's consistency. Quiet, unglamorous, repetitive consistency. Not the kind that makes headlines, but the kind that changes lives over time. The small actions you repeat daily, the ones that seem insignificant in the moment, are the ones building your future behind the scenes. Like drops of water carving stone, consistency reshapes everything it touches, not with force, but with time. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can achieve in a year of consistent effort. That's because growth rarely looks dramatic while it's happening. It's slow, invisible even. You show up to the gym day after day and see no change, until suddenly you do. You write one paragraph at a time, thinking it means nothing, until one day there's a finished manuscript. You meditate each morning, feeling distracted, and then months later, you notice your mind is calmer, your reactions softer. That's the compound effect in action. The compound effect works in both directions. Positive consistency builds strength. Negative consistency builds regret. Skip one workout, no big deal. Skip a week, then a month. Now you've created inertia. Spend a few minutes scrolling mindlessly. No harm done. Do it for hours every day, and you've quietly traded months of your life. It's not the single decision that shapes your life. It's the repetition of that decision. That's why consistency is not just a habit. It's a commitment to your future self. Neuroscience backs this up. Repeated behaviors reinforce neural pathways in the brain. The more you repeat a behavior, the more automatic it becomes. Consistency builds habits, and habits build identity. Every time you follow through, especially when it's inconvenient or difficult, you send a message to yourself. I am someone who shows up. That message matters. It changes how you see yourself and how you move through the world. But consistency isn't about perfection. You'll have off days. You'll fall short. The key is not to expect flawlessness. It's to bounce back quickly. The most successful people in any field are not the ones who never slip. They're the ones who never stay down. They've learned that missing once is a stumble. Missing repeatedly is a pattern. So they return to the habit, even if they don't feel like it, even if it's not their best day, because they know momentum is fragile, and protecting it is the real work. If you want to build consistency, start by lowering the barrier to entry. Make it easy to begin. Don't aim for heroic effort. Aim for something sustainable. 5 minutes of deep work is better than none. One healthy meal is better than a perfect diet followed by burnout. Consistency isn't built on intensity. It's built on reliability, on showing up no matter how small the step. It also helps to track your progress, not for perfection, but for awareness. Visual proof of consistency reinforces the habit loop. It shows you what you've already invested and motivates you to keep the chain unbroken. That's how small habits become permanent shifts, through repetition, recognition, and quiet accountability. So ask yourself today, what habit, if done consistently, would completely change my life a year from now? And then, more importantly, what's the smallest possible version of that habit I can start with today? Because success isn't built in bursts, it's built in layers, in days stacked quietly on top of each other. And the people who understand this, who embrace the slow, steady path, are the ones who wake up one day to a life that reflects not just their dreams, but the actions they took day after day to make those dreams real. Consistency compounds, and if you honor it, it will work in your favor, quietly, patiently, powerfully, for the rest of your life. Sharpen your focus, cut through distraction and stay aligned. In a world full of noise, focus has become a superpower. We live in an age of endless information, constant notifications, and digital temptations that pull our attention in every direction. It's not a lack of intelligence or ambition that keeps people stuck. It's the inability to concentrate, to finish what they start, to stay with what matters long enough to let it grow. If you can master your focus, you can change your life. If you don't, even your best ideas will stay buried beneath distractions that feel urgent, but leave you empty. Focus isn't just about discipline, it's about clarity. You can't stay focused if you don't know what truly matters. You can't resist distractions if your goals are vague, if your time isn't protected, if your energy is scattered. When your mind is pulled in 100 directions, you begin to lose connection with your priorities. And in that fog, you start reacting to whatever is loudest instead of responding to what's most important. The average person checks their phone hundreds of times a day, often without thinking. We bounce between tabs, conversations, tasks, and thoughts, creating a fractured mental state where nothing gets our full attention. This constant switching doesn't just waste time, it drains your cognitive energy. Every switch costs you focus. Every interruption takes minutes to recover from. And slowly, you become someone who's always busy, but rarely present. Neuroscience calls this attention residue. When your brain jumps from one task to another without finishing the first, part of your attention remains stuck on the previous activity. That lingering residue reduces performance, increases fatigue, and erodes your ability to go deep. And deep work, focused, uninterrupted effort, is where your most valuable progress is made. It's where ideas crystallize, skills sharpen, projects move forward. So how do you protect your focus in a world built to break it? First, you need to intentionally design your environment. Your surroundings either support focus or sabotage it. Keep your phone out of sight during your most important work. Disable unnecessary notifications. Use tools that block distracting websites. Don't just rely on willpower. Shape your space to protect your attention. Make it easier to concentrate than to get distracted. Second, set clear boundaries around your time. Treat your deep work hours like non-negotiable appointments. Don't just hope for focus. Schedule it, and when that time comes, guard it fiercely. No multitasking, no checking messages, no jumping between tasks. Choose one thing and give it your full presence. Even if it's just for 30 minutes, that focused energy compounds over time. Third, practice mental clarity. Start your day by reviewing what matters most. Ask yourself, if I only completed one thing today, what would make the biggest impact? Write it down. Anchor your attention to it. Throughout the day, return to that question. Let it cut through the noise and bring you back to center. You can't do everything, but you can always choose what to do next with intention. And finally, understand that focus is a muscle. It strengthens with use, and it weakens with neglect. The more you train it, by resisting distractions, by staying with discomfort, by saying no to the easy option, the more capable you become of entering deep, productive flow. And once you've tasted that state, once you've experienced what it feels like to be fully immersed in something meaningful, you won't want to live any other way. So reflect right now. Where is your focus going? What distractions have you normalized? And what would happen in your life if you committed, even just for the next 7 days, to protecting your attention like your future depends on it? Because it does. Focus is how dreams become plans, how plans become action, and how action becomes real, lasting transformation. Don't wait for silence, create it. Don't hope for clarity, choose it. Sharpen your focus, and the path ahead will begin to reveal itself. Fuel yourself. Build inner drive for the tough days. There will be days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Days when you're tired, uninspired, uncertain. Days when your goals feel far away and your progress feels invisible. On those days, what keeps you going isn't hype or external praise. It's inner drive. A fire that doesn't flicker with every wind. A deeper reason that pulls you forward, even when everything else says stop. And the truth is, if you want to build anything that lasts, whether it's a business, a craft, a transformation, you need fuel that doesn't run out just because your mood dips. Inner drive isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And it starts with understanding your why. Not a surface-level goal or an aesthetic vision, but the reason underneath. The thing that matters to you enough to endure discomfort. Enough to show up when it's hard. Enough to keep climbing when no one's watching. When you're connected to a deep, personal why, discipline becomes less of a chore and more of an act of alignment. But inner drive isn't just about passion, it's about energy management. You can't push endlessly without rest and expect to stay consistent. High performers don't just work harder, they recover better. They understand that energy is a resource to be protected. That means quality sleep. That means movement, nutrition, time in nature, moments of stillness. These aren't luxuries, they're fuel. The sharper your physical and emotional energy, the more resilient your mind becomes when resistance shows up. You also need to build emotional endurance. Because pursuing meaningful work is not a straight line. You will face doubt, setbacks, days when nothing clicks. That's not failure, that's the path. And if you expect that path to always feel good, you'll give up too soon. But if you train your mind to keep going regardless of how you feel, you unlock a new kind of strength. The ability to act without needing to be in the perfect state. To work without waiting for inspiration. To show up because you said you would, not because you feel like it. One powerful way to build that mindset is through visualization. Not just imagining success, but imagining adversity. Preparing yourself mentally for the tough moments so that when they arrive, they don't shake you. Athletes do this. Soldiers do this. Stoics did this. Marcus Aurelius called it premeditatio malorum, the anticipation of challenges. Not to dwell in negativity, but to train your response. So, when life tests you, you're not surprised. You're ready. Another key to fueling your inner drive is surrounding yourself with meaningful inputs. The books you read, the people you listen to, the conversations you engage in. These all feed your mindset. When you immerse yourself in stories of resilience, clarity, and excellence, your own standards begin to rise. Your self-talk shifts. You remember that setbacks aren't stop signs. They're part of the work. But perhaps the most powerful source of fuel comes from honoring your word to yourself. Every time you follow through, even on a small commitment, you build trust. And that trust becomes a battery. It charges you with belief. You no longer rely on external validation because you know you're the kind of person who keeps going. That inner certainty is what carries you through the hard days, through the doubt, through the silence. So ask yourself now, what's fueling me? Am I building sustainable energy, or am I running on fumes? Am I acting from alignment, or am I waiting for the perfect emotional weather to move? Because the truth is, success isn't just about action. It's about endurance. And endurance is built on fuel, not once, but daily. Through rest, through purpose, through mindset, through momentum. Fuel yourself wisely, and you'll be unstoppable. Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not. Play the long game, patience as a path to real success. In a world wired for speed, patience feels like weakness. We want fast results, instant progress, immediate returns. We're conditioned to believe that if something doesn't happen quickly, it's probably not meant to be. But the truth is, anything truly meaningful, anything that lasts, takes time. Mastery, fulfillment, deep transformation, none of it comes overnight. If you want to build something real, something you're proud of, you need to stop chasing quick wins and start playing the long game. The long game is not about working slowly, it's about working intentionally. It's about seeing your journey as a marathon, not a sprint. It's the mindset that understands that progress isn't always visible and growth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's invisible, and sometimes the seeds you plant today won't bear fruit for months or even years. But if you trust the process and keep showing up, those seeds will grow. Patience doesn't mean inaction. It means persistence without anxiety. It means doing the work even when the reward is far off. It means trusting that what you're building matters even when the world around you moves on to the next shiny thing. And this mindset is rare because we've been trained to associate speed with success. If you're not moving fast, people assume you're falling behind. But in reality, rushing often leads to burnout, shallow results, and abandoned goals. The people who truly succeed are the ones who are willing to wait, not passively, but patiently, with consistent effort, even when results don't come right away. Neuroscience shows us that the brain struggles with delayed gratification. It's wired to favor short-term rewards. That's why it's so hard to keep working when the payoff feels distant. But those who train themselves to delay gratification, to find satisfaction in the process rather than the outcome, develop a kind of emotional strength that few others possess. They become the builders, the artists, the thinkers, the leaders who stand the test of time, because they weren't chasing applause, they were building something real. History gives us countless examples. Think of someone like Leonardo da Vinci, who spent years refining the Mona Lisa, or Thomas Edison, who went through thousands of failed prototypes before creating the light bulb. Their genius didn't come from a burst of luck. It came from relentless, patient effort. They played the long game, and that's why their work endured. So what does this look like in your life? It means setting your goals with a long-term horizon, not just what you want in the next 3 months, but who you want to become in the next 3 years. It means committing to systems, not just outcomes. Focusing on the process, your habits, your learning, your character, not just the end result. It means measuring progress in depth, not speed. And it means staying steady when others get bored, distracted, or discouraged. Playing the long game also requires emotional maturity. There will be plateaus, times when nothing seems to be happening, times when you're doing everything right and still don't see the results. This is where most people quit, not because they can't succeed, but because they thought it would happen faster. But if you can hold your vision through the quiet seasons, you'll rise above the noise. Because real growth takes root underground before it ever shows on the surface. So reflect on this. Are you in it for the long haul or just chasing the next high? Do you trust the work you're doing, even when it's not paying off yet? Can you stay loyal to your process without needing constant proof? Because that's where success really lives, not in speed, but in patience. Not in bursts of glory, but in quiet perseverance. The long game isn't easy, but it's worth it. It's what separates those who start from those who finish. And it's what will make your journey not just impressive, but meaningful. The power of accountability. How to stay committed to your goals. No matter how driven you are, how disciplined, or how clear your goals may be, there will always be days when you're tempted to let things slide. Days when excuses sound reasonable, distractions feel justified, and the path forward seems exhausting. That's where accountability becomes your anchor. It's not about pressure from others. It's about building structures in your life that remind you, this matters. Keep going. Accountability is what bridges the gap between intention and action. It takes your internal desire for change and gives it an external structure. Without it, even the best plans fade. Because left to ourselves, we often default to comfort. We negotiate with discipline. We say, I'll start tomorrow, and then say it again the next day. But when someone or something outside of you expects follow-through, you think twice, you push a little harder. You stay on track, not just for your goals, but for your word. There are different forms of accountability, and the most powerful ones are rooted in integrity, not fear. It's not about being punished for falling short. It's about being reminded of who you said you want to become. It could be a mentor who checks in weekly, a friend who's walking the same path, a coach who challenges your excuses, or even a public commitment, a goal shared out loud so that backing down feels harder than pushing forward. But accountability doesn't have to come only from others. One of the most powerful forms is self-accountability, learning to keep your promises to yourself. That's where true confidence is born. Every time you say, I'm going to do this, and then follow through, even when it's hard, you build trust. And that trust becomes momentum. It becomes identity. You stop needing motivation because you are the kind of person who shows up. To build self-accountability, start small. Set micro-promises each day and keep them. Wake up at the time you said you would. Finish the task you committed to. Journal for 5 minutes, if that's what you wrote on your list. The goal isn't perfection, it's consistency. And when you fall short, don't make excuses. Reflect, adjust, try again. Accountability isn't about being flawless, it's about being honest. You can also create accountability systems, rituals that make it easier to stay aligned. A weekly review where you reflect on your actions, a habit tracker, a morning reminder of your priorities, a calendar that reflects your values, not just your obligations. These systems act like mirrors. They show you how closely your actions match your intentions, and if the gap is growing, they help you course correct. There's also a deeper layer of accountability, the kind that connects your goals to something bigger than yourself. When your actions serve a mission, a community, or a future version of you that you deeply care about, skipping a step doesn't feel small. It feels like betrayal. That emotional weight can be powerful, not in a shameful way, but as a sacred reminder. This matters. Stay the course. Reflect on your life right now. Where do you need more accountability? What goals have you let drift simply because no one was watching? And how would your commitment change if someone, or even your future self, was keeping score? Because when you build a system of accountability, you no longer rely on fleeting motivation. You build something stronger. You build discipline. You build trust. You build momentum. And that's what carries you through the days when your energy is low, your path is unclear, or your belief wavers. Accountability isn't just about staying on track. It's about becoming someone you can count on, someone who follows through, someone whose actions speak louder than their intentions. And that's a kind of power that doesn't just change your habits, It transforms your entire life. Pause, reflect, evolve, turning experience into wisdom. In a culture obsessed with speed, movement, and non-stop achievement, reflection can feel like a luxury, something we'll get to when things slow down. But the truth is, without reflection, you're not growing. You're just repeating. Without time to pause and process, even your hardest-earned lessons can fade into background noise. You become busy, but not wiser, active, but not aligned. And slowly, without even realizing it, you drift further from who you're trying to become. Growth isn't just about doing more, it's about learning more deeply from what you've already done. Every experience, success, mistake, conversation, and challenge contains insight. But you only access that insight when you pause, when you step back, ask questions, and pay attention to what the moment is trying to teach you. Without that pause, even the most difficult lessons can be wasted. You go through the pain, but miss the wisdom. Reflection turns time into progress. It's what allows you to take a day, a week, or a year and extract value from it. It's what keeps you from making the same mistake twice, from chasing goals that no longer serve you, from staying stuck in cycles that look productive but are actually just comfortable. Reflection asks, what's working? What's not? What needs to change? Not just around me, but within me. This isn't about dwelling. It's not self-criticism or overthinking. It's honest review. It's creating space in your life to slow down and listen to your thoughts, your patterns, your intuition. Because the truth is, wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers. And if your life is too loud, you won't hear it. One powerful practice is a weekly reflection ritual, 15 minutes at the end of each week to ask, what did I learn? What drained me? What energized me? Where did I act in alignment with my values? And where did I fall short? These small moments of awareness, done consistently, compound into enormous growth. They help you recalibrate, reprioritize, and move forward with sharper clarity. Reflection also gives you the courage to evolve. Sometimes we cling to outdated goals, habits, or identities simply because we've never stopped to question them. But evolution requires honesty. It means asking, is this still who I want to be? Is this path still leading where I want to go? And if the answer is no, it's okay to pivot, to release what's no longer serving you, to update your path, not because you failed, but because you're growing. The Stoics practiced this daily. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote not for an audience, but for himself. He used reflection as a mirror to stay grounded in what mattered, to realign his actions with his principles. He understood that leadership, discipline, and wisdom weren't static. They had to be renewed each day through awareness, humility, and self-honesty. You can do the same. Take 5 minutes each evening to review your day. Not to judge, but to learn. What did you do well? What could you do better tomorrow? What did this day reveal about your focus, your energy, your mindset? These simple questions, asked consistently, can create transformation more powerful than any goal-setting session because they connect you back to yourself. So ask yourself now, when was the last time you paused, not just physically but mentally, to reflect? What lessons have you missed simply because you were too busy to notice them? And what would change if you made reflection a regular part of your journey, not an afterthought, but a core habit? Because life doesn't reward constant motion, it rewards alignment. And that alignment is only possible when you pause long enough to see clearly. Reflection turns experience into wisdom. Wisdom turns action into growth. And growth, real, lasting, meaningful growth, comes not just from moving forward, but from understanding where you've been and who you're becoming along the way. Every step of the journey we've walked together in this episode points back to one essential truth: your time is your life. Not in theory, not someday, but right now, moment by moment, decision by decision. Every hour you spend is a silent investment in the person you're becoming. And if you don't claim that time with intention, the world will spend it for you, on distractions, doubts, and directions that have nothing to do with your dreams. You've seen how small habits become powerful patterns, how clarity creates momentum, how consistency compounds into mastery. But none of it matters unless you act, unless you choose. And that choice doesn't happen tomorrow or next week or once the fear goes away. It happens now, in the space between this moment and your next decision. So ask yourself, are you living each day in alignment with the life you say you want? Are you honoring your potential or negotiating with it? Are you choosing growth or letting time slip through routines that no longer serve you? This episode wasn't about pressure, it was about possibility. You have the ability right now to shift, to begin again, to simplify your focus, reclaim your attention, and align your actions with your purpose. No permission needed, no perfect conditions required, just a quiet decision to begin, and then another, and another. That's how change begins, not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of self-respect. So as we close this chapter, remember, it's not about doing everything, it's about doing what matters, with clarity, with patience, with courage. You don't need more time. You need to make the time you already have count. Now go, show up, and make today mean something.